Hello, everyone, and thank you for watching Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. I'm Sarah Mack Young, and we are here on location today at the Lincoln County Warrior exhibit. We have Miss Linda Williams with us. And Miss Linda, tell us a little bit about the new building and where we are.
We are at 113 Main Avenue North, and this is the new home and permanent home of the Lincoln County Warrior exhibit.
Very exciting. That's something that you and your team have worked so hard to bring this exhibit to Lincoln County, and now you guys have a new home.
Yes, we do, and we're so proud of it, and we're so proud of both governing bodies that helped us do this, and through them, the citizens of Lincoln County that have helped do this. So it's something for all of us to be proud of.
All right. Well, Miss Linda, let's head in and take a tour and talk to some folks and see the new Warrior exhibit.
All righty. Thank you.
As we're walking into the Warrior Project, I ran into a friend of mine, Mr. Joe Pendergrass. How you doing, brother?
Good. How are you, sir? Glad to have you.
I'm proud to talk to you. Tell me a little bit about your experience, your military time.
A couple of two or three things. First thing I'd like to say is a lot of people don't know the difference between Memorial Day and Veterans Day. Memorial Day is a day that we celebrate where these people made the supreme sacrifice. Veterans Day is honoring those people who were willing to make that sacrifice, but they didn't have to. And it's something that we really need to think about, because we need to cherish each one of these veterans. I saw one this morning that was 96 years old. I'm going to tell you a short story about something that happened to me. It's been over 55 years since I came out of the Marine Corps. Some of my closest people that I know and that I honor are my Marine brothers and sisters, my Army brothers and sisters, my Navy, my Air Force. These people have meant more to me than actually family means. There are a closer bond between these people than actually family sometimes. The sacrifices that people made coming out of the Vietnam War was, if you survived it, when you got home, you were spit on, you were talked about. It gave you a dishonored feeling, even though your life, you felt like you were doing exactly the right thing, the thing you should be doing for America. I'll relate a story to you. I went to work in Huntsville, Alabama, working on the arsenal. One day I was sitting at lunch and I was telling the story about something that had happened to me at Vietnam. And this guy spoke up. He was my same age. And he says, "We don't want to hear nothing about no Vietnam." And I'll tell you, Don, for 52 years after that, I never said anything to anybody about my service in Vietnam. I didn't talk about it with my family. I didn't talk about it with anyone. About 3 years ago, in 2016, out of the clear blue, I got a phone call. And this gentleman says, "If this is Joe Pendergrass and you were in the Marine Corps in 1967 and you were in Vietnam, please call this number." So I didn't call. A couple of days went by, I get another call. It said, "Please call this number if this is Joe Pendergrass and you were wounded on February the 28th, 1967 at a little place called Camlo. Please call the number." So I let it go by a few days, and I had told my wife, we're both skeptics anyway, I said, I'm not going to call as somebody trying to sell me something, you know what I mean? Because you get the robocalls every day. So I waited, and a couple of days went by, and I was out on the farm, and I got to thinking about this thing, maybe I should call. I can always hang up. So when I got in that night, I called this number, and the message, the fellow that answered the phone, he says, "This is Father Gann." I thought, I don't know any Father Gann. And right away he started spitting out information that nobody in this world would have except somebody that was with me the night that I got wounded. And he was my door gunner the night that I got wounded. He was doing a funeral in Miami, Florida, and he ran into this guy, and this guy said, "Whatever happened to Pendergrass?" And he says, "I don't know, but he lives in some place called Deer Valley, Tennessee." He didn't know the difference between an elk and a deer. So anyway, he gets to looking around, and on the internet, you can find almost anyone now. So he calls down to the store, and Jerry and them told him that I was the Joe Pendergrass that was wounded in Vietnam. So he gave me a call, and that's how we got connected. So he says, what we're going to do, I said, I go to an air show every year down in Florida. I'll come through and see you. He was in South Carolina. So he said, nope, that's not going to happen. He said, I'm coming to Fayetteville, Tennessee, and we're going to celebrate February the 28th in Fayetteville, Tennessee. And so I got to thinking about it, and I told Marie, and she's still skepticized. She's still thinking, yeah, it's a scam, So anyway, I got to thinking about it. I said, Fayetteville rolls up the streets at night. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is, folks. Yeah. If you want something other than a Hardee's, you better go somewhere else after 8. But anyway, so I called him and I said, I think we better meet in Huntsville. I said, we'll have more of an opportunity to talk, and this sort of thing. So he said, okay. So we made the date. He was going to show up on the 28th of February. Well, believe it or not, February the 28th, 2016 was a Tuesday. 1967, February the 28th was on a Tuesday. Is that a coincidence, or is that a coincidence? So we made arrangements to meet at the Long Star Steakhouse there. He says, you'll know me when you come in. He says, I'll be sitting at the bar, and I'll have my frock on. That's the collar, So we get ready to go, and I'm still trying to talk Marie into going, and she's resisting the whole way. So anyway, we get ready that afternoon, and she finally consented. She said, okay, I'll go. So we went. We walked in the door, and I see this guy sitting at the bar, little short fella, and he's talking to this other fella, but I saw his collar. And I went right straight toward him, handed out my hand, and he gets up, and then we hugged, and it was just like yesterday.
Did you recognize him?
Absolutely not. Oh, no. He was a little short, bald-headed fellow, and I didn't remember him. And I got to thinking about why I didn't remember him. But in the Marine Corps, I never worked with a crew more than about 3 days at a time. I didn't understand why that they were doing that to us at the time, but I understand really now why they did that, because if you work with a squad or you work with a crew more than 2 or 3 days, you become so attached that if something happens to one of your brothers, it puts you in an instant shock mode. You start closing doors. All the doors up here, you start closing. And so anyway, I understood that. But so anyway, make a long story short, he says, I've got us a table in the back corner, so we won't disturb anybody. We can stay as long as we want. So we head back, and just as we get there, there's a sign that says bathrooms. Ladies one side, men the other side. So he says, I've got to go to the bathroom. Marie says, well, I've got to go to the bathroom. I didn't understand her logic at the time, but I do now. So anyway, they take off to the bathroom, and about the time he gets to the main door there, he takes off right back toward the bar. I said, uh-oh, here it comes. Marie was right, So he starts bringing this guy back there with him that he was talking to. And the guy comes along, and he gets within about 5 or 6 feet of me, and he starts pushing his hand out like this. And then he grabs my whole hand and arm and pulls me to him. Come to find out, he was my co-pilot the night that I got wounded in 1967. The last time I saw them, they were taking me off of the helicopter and putting me on a gurney that night.
Tell me about, did you learn to fly in the military, or did you already know how?
No, I did not learn how to fly in the military. I flew as a crew in the military. And when I got out, I got my commercial pilot's license.
Tell me about the day you was wounded.
It was a little place called Camlo. It was right up next to the DMZ, Rockpile, Quezon. That's where I spent all of my time. But anyway, we went into this place 3 times this particular day. The first time we went in, we took out 14 wounded. The next time we came out, we had 13 wounded, and we thought that was done. We were done for the day because it started to rain. About 5 o'clock, we got a call that says you've got to make an emergency ammunition drop, because if you don't make the drop, the Marines won't be able to maintain the perimeter overnight. So we fly up the river, right on the deck. It's raining. The ceiling's about 500 feet. We get there, and this river makes a real big crook, and the little church sits there, and the name of this place is Camlo. As we're coming into the zone, I see this Huey, and he's coming down, and he's on fire. So I thought, uh-oh, this is not good, because we'd already been in there twice, and we got mortared both times we went into the zone. So as we started in, like I said, I saw the Huey coming out. He was on fire. And what we decided we were going to do, there were two birds in the flight. The first bird was a distraction. He was to go in to act like he was going to land, flare, and peel off and go. And we were to come in behind him and put the ammo on the ground. And just as we got over the zone and started to come into the zone, they opened fire on us. And it was like a tin can with rocks in it. That's what it sounded like. I don't know how that anybody survived what we did that particular night, but anyway, the next thing I knew, I was hit, and we were out of the zone.
Where were you hit?
I came through my left foot and out my right knee, and but anyway, it's a thing that people that are in Vietnam, they have. If they served in combat, they've closed so many doors, and all of my doors had been closed up until 2016. Ever since the night that I got together with these two guys again, things have not been the same for me. I've wrestled with a lot of things that I thought I had forgot about, and I think really that that was part of it. And I think that a lot of veterans in my era, that's what they're dealing with, is some of the stuff that they close the doors on, and if they get reopened, it's tough. It's like putting the genie back in the box. So I believe it's hard to do.
Joe Pendergrass, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you telling me the story, and appreciate your service.
Thank you very much.
Tell everybody at home your name.
My name is John Barron.
John, what branch of the military did you serve in?
I'm retired from the United States Navy, proud 20-year veteran.
Tell us a little bit about your service and where all you served.
Well, I went in 1973. I was a late bloomer. I went in at 26 years old. Before that, I was working for an optical outfit that made government contracts for periscopes and binoculars and night scope visions. So I was deferred. And so after my employment, I went to my recruiting office and decided I wanted to join up and spend the next 20 years in the service. I went in, all of my relatives, my uncles, my grandparents, everybody had served, and I figured, it was my responsibility to follow. So I went in and went to Great Lakes Boot Camp, which was a culture shock, even for somebody a little older. But I served as Master at Arms through my boot camp company, and then after boot camp, I went to Bainbridge, Maryland for Regiment A School, B School, C School, and my first duty station was in Key West, Florida, which I really enjoyed because of the small outfit it was. We were more or less just a detachment down there. It's an air station, but it was for communications. It was a small detachment, and from there I was stationed overseas in the Philippines at Subic Bay. I spent 3 years in Subic Bay, and after that I was assigned to an unrepped oiler, which we spent a lot of time in Japan and the Indian Ocean, the Western Pacific, and went to Korea. I've been to just about every country in the Pacific Rim. Korea, Thailand, just went to Africa, just Australia, just all over. And from there, I was assigned back to Subic Bay, and I spent 2 years there. And after that, I was assigned to a fleet tug, USNS Narragansett, which we became the platform ship after the Korean airliner KAL-007 was shot down. I was a platform ship. We was out there searching for the black box, and unfortunately we found the remains of several people and stuff we had to put in bags and put in storage in cold storage. So, it was a sad time. But from there, my duty stations included NAS Jacksonville, Florida, and then I was assigned to a classified research vessel, which was mainly in the South Atlantic, which was classified, and I can't talk a lot about that, but we did get to go to Rio de Janeiro, which was a thrill for me, and Caracas, Venezuela. So seeing some of the world on that side of the world was kind of special to me. I'd never been that way before. And we went over to Italy, so I got to see a lot of the world in 20 years. But after that, I was stationed at Adak, Alaska, and it was an unaccompanied tour. And my last tour of duty was Guam, where we established a new air squadron. And from there, I took my last ever plane trip home to Oakland, California, boarded a train, went back to Missouri, and was reunited with my mother and family. And it's been a journey. And since I retired in '93, I've worked at optical, and I worked as a truck driver. In fact, I just retired from driving a truck in 2006. And I'm currently 73 years old and living the life, enjoying my golf, and here I am.
Absolutely. Thank you for serving our country and telling your story today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Miss Linda, tell us a little bit about the gun behind you. That's pretty interesting. I've never seen that before.
This is a Japanese souvenir from World War II. It is on loan to us from the Dwight Cottle family. His father was stationed in the Marshall Islands in 1945, and the battles there, I think, were 43 and 44. So that's why they allowed him to ship this home as a souvenir, and it's in wonderful condition, and we're so appreciative to Dwight and his family for allowing us to display it here.
Absolutely. Well, that's a neat addition, and that was really nice of them to let y'all borrow that.
It is. It has the authentic paperwork where he was allowed to ship it home.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, as we continue walking through the new Warrior project here, we caught up with.
I'm Virgil Plummer, retired Navy Chief Warrant Officer, Submarine Force.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and your service.
I was fortunate we're standing here in World War II. I served on the last World War II diesel boat that we commissioned. And then I had the pleasure of serving on the last diesel boat that we ever made. And I love submarines, and it wasn't for everybody. And I rode the nuclears after 10 years of enlisted service. So, Admiral Kelso, he qualified on a diesel boat before he went nuclear power. That was a transition back in those days. Those guys went and talked to Admiral Rickover, who I had the misfortune of meeting a few times. Hard man to work for.
I'm sure you met quite a few hard folks to work with.
But 90% of the people that I work, Submarine Force is a lot different. It's laid back, but it's work hard and play hard. And those guys that qualified on the diesels were a different brand after they made nuke. So, But yeah, I've worked for some people that I was glad I was leaving in a couple of years, or they were leaving.
I guess the quarters were close.
Yeah, on the diesel submarines, especially on the World War II, you decide, am I going to lay on my back or am I going to lay on my stomach tonight? Because you was on a pan locker and you had a piece of foam covered over with vinyl, because sometimes they spilled diesel fuel on your rack, and you slept on your uniforms, your dress uniforms. You put them in plastic and lay them underneath your mattress so they'd be pressed and look nice. And you put mothballs in there, and once you went on liberty, mothballs would smell would go away in a little bit. It was better than diesel fuel.
How long were you deployed or underneath the water?
The longest I was under the water, we were on what they called special operations, and we were on a diesel boat. We was under 4 months. We would come up to snorkel depth, which meant you were still 60 foot under the water. You put up a snorkel pipe, and then you brought in fresh air and ran your diesel engines to charge the battery, because you ran on the battery most of the time.
Can you give us an idea about how large a submarine is? Most people wouldn't have an idea. I mean, I don't know how to explain it.
Well, the Sarago was 412 feet long, and it was a 412 boat. So it only test depth for a little over 400 feet. And one time on it, we was on the spec op, in fact, and we took it down to 750 feet, crushed a few tanks and surfaced, and I thought that was going to be the end. And then the Bonefish was the last. It was a diesel boat on a new call. They made 3 of them, experimentals, and it was a 650 boat. We could take it down to 650, and it was a lot shorter. It was where the 400 foot, it was about 250 foot.
Were you armed?
Yes, we had torpedoes, and if you were on a spec op, special operations, we did take Mark 45 nuclear torpedoes with us, and we had the standard conventional weapons on board also.
How well can you see in the submarine? What's outside?
You don't. unless you come up when you're on spec ops. Now, submarine would raise the periscope and take pictures of, say, a Russian hull or a North Korean hull or whatever. But as far as seeing outside, there are no portholes. We'd jokingly say, well, we're going to have periscope liberty, and you'd go up to control. They'd raise a periscope, and you could look around and see the daylight. But I never cared to. Take me, when I get to port, wake me up, and I'll go ashore.
What was your job every day?
I was a yeoman. I was a clerical. So I was the paymaster, the postal clerk, the personnel officer, and all that stuff. And so my normal was just like anybody else, except on a spec op. Then I worked 16 hours a day. I typed the patrol reports and all that. So
Before computers?
Before computers. Oh, when I first went aboard, we weren't allowed to have Xerox machines. We had the old light bulb photo that they did, and that paper disintegrated after a while, yeah. But yeah, then they came out with what they called the mag card typewriters. But it ruined the professional writers. The officers, when I first went aboard, they would write a letter or whatever, and I would type it, they would sign it. But after that, you had I want to change this. I want to change this. So it took away.
So you're considered a World War II veteran, but you're one of the youngest ones I've ever met.
No, I'm not a World War II.
Oh, no, you're not count. What do you count yours?
I'm from the Vietnam era.
Vietnam era. I thought you was awful young.
Yeah.
But you said we was in the World War II.
Well, I mean, because I worked on that World War II submarine. No. I have an uncle that's still alive, World War II veteran, 98 years old. Yeah, he was in fact, his peacoat's back there. He was an aviation ordnanceman. He loaded the bombs on the airplane in the South Pacific. Neat guy.
So you've got a lot of military service in your background. We appreciate your service, and thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
We've made our way over to the Vietnam era, and we have with us
Barbara Locklear.
Miss Barbara. Tell us a little bit about your service for our country.
Well, I joined the Marine Corps in 1961, and my MOS was like 4100, so I started out in the office of the exchange, and later on I transferred over to the catalog division, where where I learned to run printing presses. Of course, when you first got there, they give you the menial jobs, and I was a waitress in the officers' mess. So then when I got out, my first duty station was at Parris Island, South Carolina. That was an experience I would not wish to repeat. But anyway, I got out and just started working, you know.
Absolutely. Where were you stationed in when you signed on first? Were you in Vietnam?
No, I was not in Vietnam. At that time, women did not go to combat.
So you were here stateside?
I was stateside. I was at Camp Pendleton.
Okay. And you had a lot of different cool jobs, and you ended out your time at Parris Island, correct?
Yes.
All right. And what made you want to serve in the Marine Corps?
Well, I am the eldest of 5 children, and my mother was widowed and like 5 months pregnant, so I was in Christmas break in the 10th grade. So we moved from Amarillo to Lubbock, Texas, to be closer to relatives. And I got a job as a car hop at A&W Drive-In, and I was planning on going back to school in the fall. That didn't happen. I joined the Marine Corps instead. So that's pretty much it.
Well, thank you, Miss Barbara, for your service. We appreciate it.
Well, I am the commander of the American Legion post here in Fayetteville. I was nominated for commander this June, and in July they inducted me as the commander. So I'm trying to make the American Legion more relevant to the community, trying to do things that'll involve the community. So we need any veterans that are not signed up to the American Legion really needs to belong.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you, Miss Barbara. We've made our way over to the Revolutionary War era, and we're here talking with
Arden Humphrey.
Miss Humphrey. Tell us a little bit about the Revolutionary War and why there's some of the folks listed, and they're folks from Lincoln County.
Yes, I'm a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, the Kings Mountain Messenger chapter here in Lincoln County. And in our research over the years, we have found that there were at least, and I say at least because we're still finding names, of 121 Revolutionary War soldiers who, after the war ended, made their way into Middle Tennessee and settled here in Lincoln County. And this part of the exhibit is dedicated to those Revolutionary War soldiers who were the ones who gave us our freedom and helped us to make a country of the United States. And we're so fortunate that we have their names, we have researched them, we found their names, we have found what states they represented. Of course, we have a very nice monument up on the courthouse square that is dedicated to them, but we also are very happy that they can be included here in the Warrior exhibit.
Absolutely. When you talk about the research that you've done, and it's been hours and hours of research, how do you find all that information?
Well, of course, it's much easier to do research today than it used to be, because now we have the services of the internet, and we can go out to various sites such as Ancestry.com and Fold3 and different sites like that on the internet that really can expedite the amount of time that we need to spend in research. But of course, the Daughters of the American Revolution also maintains a wonderful website where you can also research all those Revolutionary War veterans who have already been named and actually assigned numbers as part of the DAR.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Humphrey. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Glad to be with you today.
Miss Linda, you guys have got a special project going on right now to help with the Warrior exhibit. So tell us a little bit about that.
We actually have two. The first one is the gift wrapping. We will be doing gift wrapping, of course, for Christmas, but we hope if it catches on and people find out that we're doing this, that we will be doing the gift wrapping year-round for birthdays, holidays, and all that. And, of course, all the proceeds will go back into the Warrior exhibit. And the second thing, and this will be sometime after the first of the year, I can't really give an exact time, but Brenda, my sister, Brenda Rose, when she closed her shop, donated us all of her framing equipment and about $10,000 worth of framing molding. So there's a couple of us that are going to go and take framing classes, and then we are going to frame for the public. Now, this will be sometime after the first of the year because we've got to get good at it before we start practicing it. But all of that money will go back into the exhibit. So we're hoping to be able to actually fund it, with the expenses that haven't been normally paying since when we were at the rec center, but we are up here. So we'd appreciate people to come in and get their gifts wrapped, and you can drop them off. You'll be given a tag saying what you dropped and what paper you picked and so forth, and then you pick them up in 2 days. So we're hoping that really catches on in town.
All right. Well, thank you, Miss Linda.
Thank you.
Caught up with Jack Buck here at the Warrior Project. Jack, good to see you, and I hear you're on the board here.
Oh, yes, Linda roped me into it. Glad to be here. Glad to help out.
Tell me about your service.
Well, I enlisted when I was 18 in 1965, and I stayed till 1985. I did for 20 years. And during that time, I had 2 or 3 different jobs. I started out as a typewriter jockey. I wanted something a little bit more exciting, so I cross-trained to fly as a loadmaster. So for 3 years in Travis Air Force Base, I flew on C-141s in and out of Vietnam every few days. We had the pleasure of, we'd leave Travis, California, go to Clark Air Base and hang out week 10 days, flying in Vietnam every day, come back, 72 hours off with a wife and family, and do it all over again. Wow. She says she almost never saw me for 3 years, But coming home was fun. I got to admit.
Sure. Well, it had to be an exciting tour for sure doing that.
It was. If you talk to other people that had that same job I did, they'll tell you that was the best job in the military. I really do believe that. It was a lot of fun.
Well, we appreciate your service, and we thank you for what you're doing here with the Warrior Project.
Well, I'm glad they asked me to join. It's actually kind of humbling to come in here. It was great up the other building, but it doesn't compare to this. This is really good. And I was walking through, and you just talked to Joe Pendergrass. I went to high school with him. Oh, yeah. And I said, Joe, do you have a picture here? He goes, yeah, right over here. And I've been in here many times. I never noticed his picture. Today I saw 2 pictures of boys I graduated from high school with. If you don't look close, you'll miss them. So you have to keep coming back and keep looking, Yep. It's worthwhile.
It is. Thank you, Jack. Appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you very much.
We've made our way over into the Middle East and in the Gulf War, and we're here with
Senior Chief Putten. I've been retired for a couple of years now. U.S. Navy, 26 years service.
All right, let's talk a little bit about where all you've served and why you wanted to be in the Navy.
First thing I want to go about why I wanted to be in the Navy. I was working in construction business, and I joined pretty late. I was about 26 when I went to boot camp. And I was just going to do about 4 years, do my initial enlistment, but some defining moment during that time when we were part of Operation Uphold Democracy in the Republic of Haiti. This is 1994, 1995, and it was a UN peacekeeping type mission, and just being able to see the U.S. and other allied nations help the poor people of the Republic of Haiti actually changed my life. And at that point, I had been serving for about 4 years. And at that point, I made that decision, conscious decision, to do it as long as I can. And as far as where I've been deployed to Afghanistan twice, one in the onset of Operation Enduring Freedom, and my last deployment in Afghanistan was in 2011. I did 2 deployments to Iraq. One was again is in the initial onset, and then my second deployment was in 2005, 2006 during the height of the insurgency, which was very interesting. I've deployed in peacetime to mainland Japan, two places, Marine Corps Air Station Iwakuni and Atsugi, Japan. And on the Caribbean side, in the 1990s, early 1990s, when we're doing a lot of the counter-narcotics, we deployed to Roosevelt Roads, Puerto Rico, and Vieques Island. But there are other places like the Balkans also in the mid-1990s where I was part of Operation Joint Guard. And that was another peacekeeping, part of the stabilization force there in the Balkans. So been in Albania, Bosnia, Croatia, Slovenia, all around that area of the world. Currently, I am the Naval Science Instructor at Lincoln County High School here in Fayetteville, Tennessee. And it's our second year in the program. So the program's grown. We had about 85 cadets enrolled in this school year. Hoping to grow some more and be able to influence a lot of the younger folks, because some of them really need that mentorship.
All right. Well, thank you for your service, and thank you for what you do for our country.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. I wish I could do it some more.
It's a beautiful flag here, encased here at the Warrior Project. Gail Pertain, tell us a little bit about the flag.
The flag was flown on the back of truck number 223 as it entered Baghdad on September 17, 2003, and it was driven by my son. And after they left Baghdad, he pulled the flag and sent it home to me, and we flew it in the courthouse on the square for, I believe, 2 weeks, and then I had it framed. I brought it down here.
I know you're proud of it. It's something to be proud of.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Linda Williams, I'm sure that the move from the rec center to here with the Warrior Project was a pretty big ordeal, a lot bigger than most people would think.
Yes, it was. But let me tell you, Don, Mike Davis and his team, his crew that actually remodeled this building, they went out there, they took it off the walls, we loaded it in the back of my van and brought it over here, and they hung every piece of that exhibit.
It's like moving a library. You've got to move it, and you got to put it back in its right spot. Right. And if it was me doing it, I'm sorry, I'd probably have everything filed up.
Well, I think we had two pictures crossed. We had a Korea picture in World War II and World War II in Korea. So somebody pointed that out yesterday.
Well, we're on Main Street. Is that how you describe somebody how to get here?
Yes, it is. Right off the square by the art teacher studio across from Dixie Smith's insurance company.
This is a great project, and I know it takes money to keep the doors open, keep the lights on, and do all the things you want to do. How can people who might not even have any military background help you out?
They can send donations to 113 Main Avenue North, care of the Warrior exhibit. We're certainly appreciative of that. We also have a donation box here in the exhibit hall, and anybody can do that. One lady just brought in a quilt that she wanted to donate. We've had lots of donations and help from a lot of people.
All right, let's talk about photographs. There's probably somebody watching who's got somebody in their family from here that's been in the military, and they'd like their picture on the wall. What's the process?
They come to the exhibit building and pick up an envelope. That envelope has all the information that we need. They return it with a 5x7 photo, preferably in uniform, but if you don't have one, then it can be just a snapshot, and bring it back to the building. We do have a $25 framing fee. However, the student body of Lincoln County High School has donated some money to help out if someone does not have the money to do that. So please do not let lack of money cause you not to put a picture in.
And you get your picture back, right?
Yes, you get your picture back, and your picture becomes a part of this tribute to our veterans. And let me say this, Don. A lot of people think, well, I didn't go to war. You do not have to have gone to war. All you have to have done is served your country to be eligible for this.
And one thing I will say is this is going to be here from now on, and it's something that we're really, really proud of. It's something you have been working on for quite some time, and moving it here is a great thing as we are celebrating this Veterans Day today. We appreciate the opportunity of getting to hear from some of the great people you lined up for us, and we really thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate everything that y'all do, and you do a lot for us.
Thank you. Linda Williams from the Warrior Project here just off the square here in Fayetteville, Tennessee. Thank you very much for watching Fayetteville Public Utilities Channel 6. We'll see you back in here next time.